The following program will make you want to grow things and experience new and wonderful dreams about your plants, garden, and garden design. Listener participation is always strongly advised. Good evening and welcome to Down the Garden Path with your host Joanne Shaw and Matthew Dressing, right here on Reality Radio 101. To get on board, dial 905-725-1907. Toll free anywhere in North America, 1-866-905-7325. Worldwide, 1-866-656-5477. Send us an email right now. Our email address is instudio101@gmail.com. And now, ladies and gentlemen, right to your hosts of Down the Garden Path, Joanne Shaw and Matthew Dressing.
Thank you, Gary, and welcome everyone to Down the Garden Path, where each week we discuss down-to-earth tips and advice for your plants, gardens, and landscape. As landscape designers and gardeners, we think it is important and possible to have great gardens that are low maintenance, and we want to help you make it happen. I am Joanne Shaw, landscape designer and owner of Down to Earth Landscape Design. I've been designing beautiful gardens and landscapes for homeowners in Toronto for over a decade. With me, but he's really not with me, in our virtual studio is Matthew Dressing. Welcome, Matthew.
Welcome, Joanne. Good evening, everyone. I am Matthew Dressing, horticulturist and landscape designer and owner of Natural Affinity Designs. Natural Affinity is a landscape design and garden maintenance firm servicing Toronto and the Eastern GTA. Joanne and I enjoy doing Down the Garden Path each week, bringing you interesting, relevant, and helpful topics to help you achieve a great garden. We learn right along with you from each other, from our research, and from the guests that join us here on the show. As always, we welcome your questions via social media and emails.
That's right. And we always, as always, want to thank you, all our listeners who join us here live on Down the Garden Path. And just a reminder, if you can't stay or if you come in late, I guess you wouldn't hear this, but you can always check out past shows of Down the Garden Path if you're a new listener on your favorite podcast app. So Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, you name it, they're there. So while you're there, please subscribe so you'll be notified of new content. And as usual, please like and share, and definitely share it with another gardening friend you may have and let them know about us. Don't you think, Matt?
That's right. Everyone could use a little bit more gardening, I think, with all that is going on.
That's right. And we're great to listen to. My favorite activity is to listen to podcasts while I garden. So what's better than to listen to a gardening podcast while you garden, right?
I couldn't have said it better. That's right. So it's the last Monday in the month of April. Can you believe it? Wow.
I know.
So
the longest month of the year.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
It's so close to being ready and outside. So, do we want to start with just, what's going on in our gardens, or shall we segue right in? Or
well, why don't you do our little segue, and then we'll so we tell everybody what we're going to talk about today. What are we going to talk about?
Well, it is our lawn care month here.
That's right.
In April on Down the Garden Path. So this month we've been talking all about lawn care. So when it comes to our lawns, We're a little bit fanatical. We're all a little bit fanatical. So this month we've been discussing things that it takes to make a beautiful lawn, from lawn care 101 to artificial turf, some pests and diseases, and everything in between. And we've got the tips and tricks this month to get you growing a green oasis that'll make you the talk of the neighborhood. Tonight, we're going to wrap up our month-long discussion with a look at lawn alternatives.
That's right. So we're going crazy town, right? On people who want to don't want to have grass, but they want to have something that they're growing.
That's right. We've always talked about maintaining and growing that perfect lawn, and now we're talking about removing it all together or altering it in a way to make it a little bit low maintenance and maybe not 100% lawn anymore.
Mm-hmm. So there's lots of. So I think our listeners will enjoy this because I think there's a lot of alternatives.
Yes, I agree. And perhaps you've already got some lawn alternatives that you're using in your own yard, and you'd like to share those with us. We'd love to hear from you, where you are and maybe what you're doing differently in your lawn space instead of the traditional growing grass. So you can always join the conversation. You can write us at instudio101@gmail.com. And we'd love to hear what you're doing, what you're up to in your lawns, and answer any questions you may or may not have.
That's right. That's right. Or if you've got a tricky spot where you can never get grass to grow, or if there's another reason.
I think.
Hello.
I think you cut out there for a second.
Joanne, are you there? It's Joanne's phone. Apparently, she's on. Is she on phone or computer? Do you know?
She's on the computer.
Okay.
Yeah, she's dropped her phone. Anyways,
I'm here.
Okay.
Good. Okay.
Joanne? Are you on a telephone or are you hooked up to a computer?
No, I was on the telephone, but I was using that new headset I told you about. But
okay.
I guess it just cut out. How long have I been gone?
Not long. Less than a minute.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm back.
So you're back on phone with a headset or without?
Without a headset.
Okay. You sound marvelous without it. So absolutely. Okay. Go ahead, guys.
Thanks, Gary. Sorry about that, Matt. What were we saying?
You were saying some of the other exciting things about maybe using lawn alternatives or tricky spots in your yards for lawns.
That's right. Yeah, there's lots of tricky spots in yards, or there's people that have really large space, and the thought of cutting it all the time and maintaining it is just less appealing, So there's some alternatives that we can do. So I'm really looking forward to talking about today's show.
Wow.
But in the meantime, we thought we would, you have gone back to work officially, your other job.
Yes, my other job.
So you are back at the garden center. So why don't you give us a scoop on what's happening? It's still, end of April during this pandemic here in Canada and I guess the world. So things are not as usual when they're usually crazy at a garden center in April. They're a little bit different, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, we're not essential, or not essential in quotation. Some would argue that we are for mental health, but we are not open to the public in the traditional sense. So there's no more people walking into the garden center, taking their time, looking at flowers, purchasing soils, and solving problems. Plants are still arriving, and they should still be arriving pretty much at everybody's garden center. A lot of pre-orders that were done last summer and or fall are still bought and paid for or on terms and are on their way. So we're receiving lots of fresh plants, lots of seasonal goods, lots of different trees and shrubs that are gearing up for the spring and summer. So
you just don't have anybody to put them away.
Right. Yeah, that's it. We're picking the order. So we've got online order and curbside pickup. So we're kind of juggling that with juggling all the trees and shrubs. But take a look at your local garden center. Give them a call. There's still lots of plant material that should be coming in for the most part. I mean, everyone's got different circumstances, I'm sure. But call in. Maybe they can do curbside pickup, or they are doing curbside pickup. And I know for our garden center, there's a lot more of it that's available than you might find on our online part of it or in our e-commerce. And it's just, there's too much to put online. So definitely give your garden centers a call. I'm sure they've got a lot of those classics, or they've got a lot of stuff coming in that you are hoping to get out to and take a look at.
That's good news, because I was wondering if there was, you know, a hesitation or a delay just in the what's it called? Like the shipping of the, you know what I mean, in the supply chain, let's say, because I thought maybe those trucks would be used for something else, and that, you know, that wasn't necessarily seen as a priority from the transportation standpoint. Because I know stuff, you know, for Toronto, a lot of stuff comes from BC, you know, that type of thing. So, so that's good to know.
Yeah, I mean, and that's not to say that there aren't some delays for sure. Some things have been pushed back a week or two just because, again, that shipping, the availability of trucks for those companies, the rental companies, not everything. The nurseries that are, say, for example, on the West Coast, don't necessarily own those trucks, and they hire a shipping company to ship that product across the country. So, of course, yeah, you're right. There are some delays because the trucks have been bought up or booked for other things that are a little bit more important for the current situation.
Yes.
So, yeah. So there might not be everything, but, I mean, like, for example, for us, we're waiting for emerald cedars. They're still a couple of weeks away, where normally we would have them by now.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah.
Where are they coming from?
I think a number of them from the States or just south of the border, and a few of them more in BC and Quebec.
Okay.
So they're still on their way.
Okay. And I know I was exchanging emails with a different wholesale nursery, and they have their, you know, the stuff that they grow. And, you know, they were saying that, you know, so they're still not shipping to clients or to contractors, because landscaping is also not essential. So the contractors are not working right now either. So they are kind of processing orders, you know, in anticipation of them to start to reopen. So, yeah.
Right. I think the only part of, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe I've heard it wrong. I thought that I heard that the lawn care services have started to become, or are about to become, more essential service.
Yeah, I think the lawn and maintenance, property maintenance, I think more of the property maintenance standpoint, because I think they could make the case for health and safety, like, you know, things need to be cleaned up and swept up and trip hazards dealt with and that type of thing. The grass really isn't growing, so I don't know how much they're really cutting yet. But certainly the property maintenance portion, I believe, opened up this week, depending on if the company was ready for the protocols, you know, all the safety protocols.
Right. Yeah, because there's that whole coming out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what's happening in the garden center. How about you? You've got, I'm the condo dweller. What about you? How's your garden? How are you spending all this time at home in your own garden?
Not any of it in my garden, really. I mean, a few photos. I guess I'm lucky. There's really not too much to do. So I did cut back my son actually helped me. I've been having some shoulder and arm issues. So my son helped me cut back my really large limelight hydrangeas. So probably still a little later than I would have liked to have done it, but about 2 weeks ago, we cut them back. And I mean, we haven't had, you know, super great weather. It's been pretty cold and windy. Saturday was the exception. Today was the exception, but I was out today. So I'm looking forward to, you know, I think I just need to go in and do some deadheading of my hydrangeas. And start cleaning up my perennials. But right now, everything's, you know, pretty good. I'm excited that I actually last year, I don't know if you remember me finally planting bulbs. So I planted lots of daffodils. I planted lots of crocuses, which the squirrel came right behind me and basically dug them up and ate them. So there's no crocuses to be found in my garden. Alliums as well, but I think the alliums are still a little bit later. Some bunnies are eating some things. Somebody had told me about coffee grounds to kind of keep the bunnies away. So I'm testing that out. I know they ate. I have two coral bells that, still had like a bit of growth from last year. And one of them, you could tell something ate the leaves. So I'm pretty sure that was a bunny. So not too much happening in my own garden, So the last week or so since we spoke, I've actually been busy in other people's gardens, which has been nice. People are starting to think ahead and like a kind of a staycation mindset of like, well, I don't think we're going anywhere this year, so let's do something in our yard. So I've had a variety of situations where homeowners have called me in, and I've been able to go and, either talk to them distance away or.
I was just going to say, how are you working with the COVID restrictions and doing the landscape design? Are you measuring them as well? And
yeah, so the few times that homeowners have come out, we kind of joke about, carrying a hockey stick around, and so that we're staying away from each other and doing a quick walk around, and then they go and chat, and I kind of take lots of notes, and then they go inside, and I do my measuring and my photos and that type of thing, and then come home and kind of send them the proposal. And so a little bit more administrative for me, where some of these consultations, there's been a couple that have been kind of smaller, where in the past I would have just sat at their kitchen table, showed them some books and some pictures while I sketched it out. So I'm kind of adapting to that. So kind of a new format.
Very nice. Well, it's good that things are going and you're up and running, and that's very good. Very good.
Yeah.
We've got some listener questions have come in. So before we kick off, I think the main bulk of our conversation, we've got Jennifer has written in. She says, "Hello, everyone. I love your show. Joanne, someone told me that you wrote a book. If so, what is it about and where can I get it? Thank you, from Manhattan, New York City."
Well, that is lovely, but no, I haven't, I'm afraid. I do have a newsletter and a seasonal tips guide that's on my website, but I have not, unfortunately, written a book, even though Matt and Gary are always telling me to do so. Matt is a much better writer. So no, I apologize, but we've had lots of, wonderful authors on the show. But I cannot, I always said I'm a better talker than I am a writer, and I don't know if anybody will agree with that or not when they listen to the podcast, but yeah, that is the scoop. So thank you.
Yes. Thank you for your question, Jennifer. And I am trying to twist her arm, and have floated the idea of a down the garden path.
So am I.
Radio show kind of crossover.
So am I. I want you guys to be going on a book tour.
Right?
Yes. Yeah.
We're going to be on the book tour live on the radio in different parts on the tour. Live from Manhattan, New York City.
That would be awesome.
And then we could have Jennifer on the show and talk to her while we signed her book. So another listener question. Harry has written in. Hi, Matt. You have to love that. Not dealing with the people in the store. I missed that show that you had about artificial lawns. Is that show posted online anywhere yet? I'm very curious about that concept. And yes, here it is. If you search Down the Garden Path podcast on your favorite podcast app, or even into Google online, you'll find your way to the show. And the podcast is posted, and it's our discussion with Brian Park. You should find it. And Brian taught us a lot of cool and different, interesting uses for our artificial turf. And it's a lot easier than we think it is. So it was a really good show, and I hope you're able to find it and listen to it. And if you can't, you can always write us here at In Studio 101. Whether it's tonight or tomorrow or another time, and we'll make sure that you get to that too. So yeah, Down the Garden Path podcast in your favorite app or on Google should take you right there for all of our past shows.
Excellent.
Right. And yes, it is a little different not dealing with people at the store. And sometimes it is a little nicer. You just kind of get to focus and it's not as distracting, but it is something to miss too with all the cool, different, unusual design and different questions and things we talk about. So I'm enjoying it. It's a nice change. I think lastly, our last question moving into our topic, Grant is writing in and says, hello, Joanne and Matthew. Besides this coronavirus that's keeping everyone inside, it is finally getting a bit warmer here in Ontario. My question for you this evening is, in my shade areas, help, what can I grow? Absolutely no sun. Thank you. So maybe, Grant, maybe we have to ask you a follow-up question. Are you thinking you'd like to grow grass or some sort of lawn alternative or kind of covery crop type plant? Or are you thinking more like what can you grow in terms of garden plants? Are you looking to build a bed or just kind of keep it simple and mowable still? So maybe if you could let us know that.
Yes, and we can be more specific for you.
Right.
Yes.
We can get right to the heart of your question.
That's right. And then that will be a good topic for, also, you're going to have to tune in next week, Grant, because that shows exactly what we're going to talk about, right? The tricky spots, challenging garden spots. So, but not to say we can't help you today. So if you just give us some more information, we would love to give you some ideas. So lawn alternatives, I think it's really cool. Like we started off the month, talking about all the steps what to do to make a better, what's the word that you always call it? Traditional lawn. And then last week we talked about artificial turf and artificial grass, which a lot of people are kind of wondering about and how far it's come. And then there's a whole other subset who don't necessarily want lawn, who'd never in a million years think of doing turf or something artificial, but who want to try other plants like clover and something called eco lawn that I'm familiar with, or even maybe turning your whole lawn, maybe it's a small space and you want to turn it into a garden, right, Matt? So we've got a few things to talk about.
That's right. So I think you hit kind of like what our lawn alternatives, right? They're just kind of alternatives to lawn.
Right.
And there's lots of different benefits to lawn alternatives as well. Where to start, really? I think the biggest one that a lot of people have started kicking off with this lawn alternative, especially with the clover, for example, was a lot of early season bloomers, right? So you've got things like your clover coming out early, and there are a lot of beneficial insects that are out and about. And this is a pollen source for a lot of those beneficial bees and other insects. This is their wake up food source. So you're definitely helping strengthening your garden by, bringing in and waking up and feeding those beneficial insects. I think going to clover as well, more specifically, because I think clover, and maybe would you agree, is probably the one that a lot of people are buzzing about right now. It tends to be like the big one. A lot of people even coming into the garden center. I'm looking for some clover. I want to put it into my lawn. And it's really No, it's there's different varieties, right? Like that's the thing that I kind of haven't done a deep dive yet. It's been on my list of really understanding, because I know you said about the bees, and that is this kind that where people are saying, but if you plant it, you can't walk barefoot in your lawn because there's going to be bees in the grass, that type of thing. So, but there is another, is it more of a sterile clover or what is the difference? Yeah, there's a few different species. There's like the white clover, you've got your red clovers, you've got your crimson clovers, all sorts of different ones. They'll all have some, I don't know of anyone that is specifically grown for being that low growing classic kind of clover that is sterile or doesn't have any pollen or nectar resources. Okay. I've never heard of the thing, but it's an interesting point about people walking in their lawn with bees. I think, and maybe my experience, I think they tend to be doing their thing, and unless you really step on one and they sting you, they realize there's another creature coming through and you're disturbing them and pushing them away, kind of like you would be in the flowers, but that's maybe just my experience.
Yeah, well, and there's other bees that nest in the ground, like, so it's not like that, you're still running on the grass barefoot, you're still taking your risks, right, of something happening. So I agree with you. Like, I think there are other native bees, a lot of native bees that actually nest, and I don't think people realize that they burrow or they live in ground and garden and soil, that type of thing. So yeah.
You'd have to grab them, get onto those guys.
Right.
Yeah. One of the main benefits a lot of people are finding, especially, is that the lawn alternatives to the non-grass species like the clovers, they don't require all the feeding and all the chemical treatments and as much water, and they're staying green and active and growing and lush when conditions aren't always as favorable for the lawns. So a lot of the grasses we grow here are cool season grasses. So they're kind of driven, their growth, by the cooler weathers. And then the heat in the summer tends to strain on their resources. But also if the grass is too short, it'll shut all those cool season grasses down. Whereas the clover or other lawn alternatives don't really rely on that. They will stay green and they will tolerate the drought, and they don't require any additional feeding or maintenance to stay green and active like that. Whereas our grass species tend to need to do that.
Okay. Do you have any information on how quickly, like, so if someone has like a patch of new lawn, and you sprinkle, clover seed, like how long does it germinate in comparison to regular lawn grass seed?
Yeah, much like regular grass seed, it will start to germinate fairly quickly and it will fill in. But like regular grass seed too, right? If you're starting from almost nothing, it can take up to a year to a year and a half to really get that lawn to be that perfect, thick, turf type green. So it does take a little bit of time, like any normal grass. We're establishing our lawn alternative plants in those areas. But it is definitely doable. One of the things you want to do when you're doing kind of like your grass seed is spread it all out, let it grow in, but hold back a little bit of your clover or your fescue types alternatives, and watch for the bare patches come in to sprinkle it in, and that will continue to help hasten it along as well. So it's not like just a one and done type of thing, like a sod. You do want to continuously apply it and note where the bare patches are, or the more difficult areas that maybe they're not really settling into yet.
Okay. And what I'm reading is that it will, basically grow in any type of soil, whether it's sandy, loamy, clay, nutritionally poor soils. Like it can basically be pretty adaptable. Yeah. But that it's not one of those solutions for shade. So it does not grow in the shade.
Right. Yes. So kind of going to maybe to Grant's question earlier for the shade, the clover is a full sun to part sun plant. It will very, very slowly, if at all, creep into the lower light areas like a shade, but sticks more to the higher, more intense partial shade for full sun. You're right. And then that's one of the other advantages of it too. Like you were saying, the poor, desolate soils, the poor, nutrient-less soils. It will adapt, and it will take over those really tough spaces where the lawn really won't move into those compacted or really super dry, or won't take as well into the sandy, really loose type soils. Yeah, so clovers will move into and fill into those spaces and still thrive in those nutrient barren spaces. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. And I think maybe especially in those areas where it's a small space and you're kind of starting from scratch, I think it would be if you're trying to overseed an existing lawn, maybe, and turn an existing lawn into clover, I think that might be a little bit more challenging.
Right. Yeah. So if you have an existing lawn, yeah, you would kind of start to add your clover seed into the smaller patches as the perennial grasses slowly die off in their life cycle. So for those, every 3 to 5 years, a certain percentage will die off, or every year it'll die off and leave you those spaces. And that's where you just kind of take your time to thread in through your different grasses, your fescues, or your like your yarrows or your clovers, and fill in that space. Yeah. Okay. And it'll take time because the grass is going to try to compete, but so will the clover as well.
Right. Wonder if you know, in the heat of the summer, because of how much it likes the heat and likes the sun, you know, regular turf grass, you know, in Ontario we have the lovely Kentucky bluegrass, right? Isn't that our main grass? But in the heat of July and the beginning of August tends to go dormant, right? Because it's resting and it's gotten too hot, it's too stressed.
Right.
Will clover stay green?
Yeah, the clover will stay green. Yeah, so it'll stay green, and it'll still compete for that space that those other weed seeds might pop in and try to take advantage of. Right. Yeah, so it'll stay green, and it'll still give you that appearance of that nice green lush lawn or green space.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
Nope.
We're good? Okay.
Do we have a question?
We do, yeah. Sorry. I thought
Okay.
you were going to say something before I jumped in.
I was going to say, do we have a question?
Yeah. There you go. John writes in, "Hi, Joanne and Matt. I have the answer to all of your listener questions. Simple. Ready? Mr. Park's artificial grass."
Oh.
Just do it. So John's joking that let's go artificial.
That's right. That's right.
And that's definitely still a viable lawn alternative. For sure.
Yeah, it was such a big topic, right? We couldn't put it in with this show. We felt like it needed to have its own show. So yeah, I guess you would call today kind of part 2 of the lawn alternatives in a way.
Yeah, you could.
Mm-hmm.
Another John is writing in. He says, "Hi, I'm thinking about tilling up my shady areas in my yard. However, I don't want any alternatives to grass planted. My question is, can you recommend any vegetables that grow with little or no sun?" With no sun, most certainly not. And I mean, that's kind of where or none that I know of that you can really grow. Personally, I've grown cantaloupes in the full shade, and I get one cantaloupe the size of a tennis ball type thing. But to get the vegetables or the fruit that's really kind of nice and stereotypically what we want to harvest and grow and eat, it takes a lot of sun power to do that. There are some of the herbs that are a little bit more tolerant to like a partial shade, as well as some of the cool season lettuces that would grow in more of a partial shade because they would get the sun. They're mainly vegetative, and being cool season, it is that slightly cooler temperature that would keep them thriving or growing. They would be a little bit more tolerant of that. But for the most part, all your veggies and your fruits and things are all, and your herbs are all full sun, John.
Yeah.
I hope that kind of answers your question, but also kind of maybe guides some of your
decisions. Well, I wonder if, John, this might segue into one of the other things we're going to talk about today is something called Eco Lawn.
Yes.
So it is a grass seed. I'll just read directly from the website, so you can check it out at wildflowerfarm.com as well, John, and the rest of our listeners. But it was introduced into the market in 1998. Ecolawn is a proprietary blend of fine fescue grasses that are more native grasses that produce a healthy, thick green lawn with minimal care. The varieties of fine fescue selected for Ecolawn has specific qualities that make them ideal for a low-maintenance turf. So they germinate quickly, especially in the shade. I have used it for some clients and some sites, and I've been amazed. It also doesn't go to, you know how a regular grass, if you don't cut it, it kind of goes to seed, and you kind of have those little, what are those called? Basically, it's like a little flower heads, right? Seed heads on the grass. Ecolawn doesn't. So you actually don't even have to mow it. That is one of the big features, is that it actually just kind of falls over and kind of cascades. So it's a great alternative. It is very good in deep shade and part shade. The website says it grows well in full shade, so I have full sun. Sorry, I haven't used it in that application, but I do have a client this year that really wants basically most of her front lawn either garden, and then the little bit that's left is going to be eco lawn. So she's taking up all of her traditional lawn, and it is also, it doesn't require a lot of watering. The roots go very deep, which is why it can never be a sod. Like they could never cut it to have it. You buy it as a sod. You actually need to use it as a grass seed. So Wildflower Farms, and for our Canadian listeners, you can order directly from them. It is trying to find where they are. They're just northern Ontario, I believe. Is where you can get it. And so I there's some, the website's cool. It's got lots of frequently asked questions, FAQs, that's the word. Some videos, lots of pictures. I have some clients, I may post some on our Facebook page, Matt, of my client's home, because we did one where they backed onto conservation, but didn't have a fence, and they really wanted to kind of bring nature closer to the house. So we planted some more native shrubs and trees on the edge of a really mature forest to kind of encourage, that blur the line between their property and the forest. And she didn't really, that's a lot of mulch, right, to put down to, that type of thing. So we ended up using Eco Lawn, and it was really wonderful, and it was incredible how quickly it filled in. So I think that is another really specialty thing. You can order it direct. I know some nurseries carry it. Your garden center carries it. Yep. It is a bit pricier than other, more traditional, Kentucky bluegrass grass. But I think for the ease of use and the success rate, it's a good one. And I think it's a really cool blend. When you start to, I won't bore everybody by reading all the different individual fescues that make up the blend. And I think it's cool that they're all native, right?
Yeah, they were all North American native grasses. Just going back to kind of your question where they are, they're in Coldwater, Ontario.
There you go. Okay.
And for those maybe looking to pick up a bag, you can find them in your garden center. If you can find them in your garden centers, you can usually find them for anywhere from $40 to $50. And I was just trying to see what the price was on the website, but I'm not there yet. $50. So it's $49.99 on their website as well. So it's pretty much you're getting the same online as you would probably find in your garden centers.
Great. And they do ship out their website. So for our U.S. listeners, they do ship out throughout North America. So I know there's not a commercial. I have no skin in the game. I have, I have interviewed the owner on one of my really early shows. She's written it because they also, hence their name, Wildflower Farm. They also provide wildflower seeds as well. So I did have her on the show really early on. But Eco Lawn, I've been really impressed with the product. So definitely recommend that for those challenging areas.
And as you were saying, or as you just say that on the tail of that, Karen has written in and says, "Thanks, Joanne, for that tip about Eco Lawn. I will mention you when I make a purchase." Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Karen. Yes, let her know we featured her again on Down the Garden Path. That'd be wonderful. So we have, clover as an alternative. John, in a shady, challenging spot, you can research Eco Lawn. And what else do we have that can be used if somebody wants to? Or I'd love to hear from our listeners. What would they like to do instead of their grass? Wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. What else are you guys doing? Or what other plants have you put down that you can use as well? But you can usually find also varieties of English daisy, white yarrows, baby blue eyes. They can also be mixed in with your clover or your fescues as well. One of the things I liked about the fescue group as well too was that it is a little bit, or provides resistance against your chafer beetles and your Japanese beetles. The white grubs don't tend to like the fescue grass either. So you can get a little bit more resistant there too, especially if you're mixing it with something like your clover, which is one of their main food sources.
So they do like clover, or they don't like clover?
They don't particularly like clover.
Oh, well, that's another advantage, isn't it?
Right. So one of the other advantages, two-pronged attack. You could do your fescue, your eco lawn, just straight eco lawn, or if you have some fescue that you'd like eco lawn mixed in with your existing lawn and clover, you could also bolster your white grub defense, if you will.
Okay. And I'm sure many of our gardeners, if you're a gardener, you're familiar with over the years things that are called steppables, right? So there are some low-growing plants that are perennial. I think of creeping thyme and woolly thyme are probably the most popular as far as really low to the ground steppables. You know, there's a few others like ajuga and help me with another one, but that kind of are a little bit more, more 6 inches above the ground as opposed to 2 inches above the ground. But and I think it would be really hard to get a big lawn of that. But if you've got like a small area where you want to put stepping stones, like maybe in a path, a sunny area, those do require full sun, where you want to put a few stepping stones and just have something green instead of pea gravel, kind of green around those stepping stones, or a path even inside your garden. I have one little area that's kind of where we tend to put the recycling bins. It's kind of the corner of my garden. So I've got some, random flagstones and some woolly thyme kind of scattered about there. Yeah. So that will grow, and it takes a little bit of time to fill in, but I think it's a nice little alternative for smaller areas, though, because I think it's pretty cost prohibitive for like a big area.
Right, and you could even combine a group of smaller areas, depending on how big your area is. Like you said, it's a lot easier and quicker for smaller garden spaces, but you can combine mass plantings of these different plants to kind of create a multi-tiered, you could, some thyme and then maybe some magus or some miniature wormwood, something like that to create a nice decorative area or spacing as well.
Yeah, I think sedums, there's lots of low sedums as well that make a really great ground cover, but I think they kind of border more on the ground cover versus the lawn alternative, because I can't really see you really stepping on those necessarily, but they're pretty tough.
Yeah, the one that I found that works the best, and I didn't know it at the time, but when I was a kid, we had a big planting of it when we would run through the garden. But it's like that long tendril, almost like iceberg sedum, the long strands. I'm totally blanking on the Latin name right now, sedum something. And it blooms in little yellow flowers. It's a tight mat, but because it's so thread-like and furry, it kind of bends over like a grass, and it kind of defends itself. So it takes some light traffic too. But your comment about walking on sedums, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I just see them as being a bit more fragile underfoot, like especially with shoes and that type of thing. So
most certainly you would like that. Most certainly.
Yeah, definitely.
As we reach the last 15, Linda's writing in. Right. Linda writes in, fantastic tips tonight. Now we're just waiting to, quote, get out there. Can we start working on our lawns, like raking and et cetera? And most certainly. Yeah, we're greening up here. The grass is growing. It's slowly where I am, out in the Whitby Oshawa area. So yeah, we're getting out there. We're warming up. I've seen honeybees and some of the mason bees are out. I haven't seen any ladybugs or lacewings or anybody, but the insects are starting to wake up and starting to become active and looking for those early nectar sources. So yeah, Linda, if you're ready to go and you need to get out there and do your thing, most certainly you can grab those extra leaves. And if you are growing your grass or lawn, or even your garden, just always watch for that soggy lawn area to compact the root zone. But other than that, it is time where we should be good.
Excellent. And Linda, if you catch our the first episode in our series in April. So I forget whatever the Monday was in April. And that was our first Monday in April was our Lawn Care 101. So we covered a lot of what to do, lots of do's and don'ts there as well. So it's still good to rake. We're going to get some rain this week, so we'll see how much we actually get. And so now we can definitely start. I think it's still a little early to put grass seed down.
Yeah, we don't, at least where we are here in Southern Ontario, we don't really have the overnight temperatures for it to start to get growing.
Right.
If you wanted to put down some top dressing, but again, it's going to be open. It'll feed what's there. I'd recommend something like a compost, something high in organic matter, but it will stay. You can put the seed down, but it'll just be blank, and you'll probably see the birds start to draw in and then pick at a few things. But yeah, they're not. It's not going to really germinate too quickly yet. Yeah.
Excellent. So the other thing, my other favorite lawn alternative is something that I did do as well. And people often refer to it as the house strip. So lots of times it's between the sidewalk and the street, the boulevard garden tends to be kind of a tough place to grow anything. A lot of times a tough place to grow grass. For me, my lawn, I don't have a sidewalk, so my lawn kind of goes from my house to the street, and I'm on a corner. So I had a really challenging time, really on the southernmost exposed area, where again we put the garbage in recycling bins, and where the salt from the winter, gets put. So I could never really grow grass there. So I basically made, a huge swath of garden. So I convinced my husband, because it was a very large area, and I can, again, maybe post some pictures on our Facebook group or on my website at downtoearth.ca in the blog section. If you kind of search for house strip, I kind of did 2 blog posts, kind of like before, during, and after. So what we did, now this is something to do if you want to plan for next year. So anybody who wants to do something this dramatic, so I did it. We, rated recycling bins for cardboard, and basically cut out and laid flat a ton of cardboard in all over. I know my neighbors thought we were crazy, but all over, and basically right on top of the lawn. Albeit the lawn wasn't in great shape, but it was lawn. We covered and overlapped and basically, covered the whole space with cardboard. There's a lasagna method. People say using lots of lots of newspaper you can do as well. I think it's just faster to do it with cardboard, to be honest. And these days, almost easier to find cardboard, right? And then we topped it up with about 3 or 4 inches of mulch. So we did this in October. I don't remember the year. I'm going to say 2017 as a guess, but we did that in October. The mulch certainly weighed down all the cardboard. I know I get lots of people asking me questions. Our one oopsie-daisy was not taking the packing tape off the boxes. That was one oops. Because you know what? The cardboard decomposed. So by the fall, so we did that in October. And then of course winter rain, like fall rain and snow and spring rain. And so by June we could plant in the garden. So, it is something for, a planner, like now's not the time to do it. But it certainly made, so that whole lawn area is now one large garden with lots of really tough, low maintenance plants, because they need to tolerate all that same conditions, right? The sun and the salt and the drought. So because this spot was really hard to water, it's really far from the house watering system. So yeah, so I think, and I've seen it, there's been a few books written about house strip. I'm looking, because I've also done a radio show on that as well in the past. I'm trying to find her book on my bookshelf. Oh, I found it. Hold on. Talk now, Matt.
Talk now? Okay. Talking. And I was wondering, maybe you could share some of the plants as you grab your book, or after you grab your book. What are some of the plants that you put in your house strip garden, just to kind of get an idea for your listeners who are growing there?
Yeah, sure. I have that patch, like I said, of the creeping thyme. I did a lot of sedums, but I did some like my favorite, like catmint. that spreads in kind of huge swaths of catmint. I try to get things because there's, people say that if it's blue or silver, that it tends to, the foliage tends to be more salt tolerant. So I have some blue, icy blue, the juniper, the low spreading icy blue juniper. So I honestly, touch wood, have not lost anything. So I have lots of catmint in different groups all around the corner. But I did plant it with hydrangeas as well, my little favorite dwarf hydrangeas. And so it has done really well. A Woodgelia, my sonic bloom Woodgelia, is now in the area that kind of at the corner of the street versus the driveway. That was a tough area. And I planted 3 sonic bloom Woodgelias last year, and they have done really well because they're now taking even more because they're taking, the snow from the driveway as well. Mm-hmm. And so I definitely can recommend. So it is Health Strip Gardening, Evelyn Haddon. Our radio show is on my website as well. But she, create a paradise between the sidewalk and the curb. So she's written a whole book, lots of great examples, especially, from all over. So she, after having that show with her, she really kind of inspired me to really tackle this area. And I know my neighbors love it. They get to look out at it and see it. And the mulches, we've topped up the mulch. And I wouldn't say it's, nice and beautiful, loamy, it's still not the greatest soil. But it's, I've chosen particularly tough plants. And they've adapted really well. And the watering for the first little while to get the hydrangeas really established, I did less watering last year, and I probably will have to do much less watering this year.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
So there's lots of different things that you can put in your health strip and replace those tough lawn growing areas that just get beaten up with something a lot more aesthetically pleasing and interesting, and for sure.
Yes. And I've heard different people do things like where they lay plastic down to kind of kill the grass and then turn that into a garden. I just like the fact that it was done. Like, the mulch was even already there, so the cardboard disintegrated. Like I said, really, it was almost like even the neighbors were shocked. Like, where did it all go? We would find the packing tape loose in the ground. So it really did. And the mulch was still, it wasn't like you had to plant it and then apply mulch again. That first year, the mulch was already there. So I used my lovely composted pine, which is my preference for a mulch. So, yeah. So I think, that's something for people to think about. I know it's not for everybody. I think you could do it also in a shady area. Just need to use more, then maybe you would use more hostas and Solomon seal, some tougher shade plants, right?
Right. Yeah, right plant, right place, right?
Right.
Those conditions, you'd want to make sure that those plants match that, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So I hope our listeners like that. I know time always flies. Every week we say the same thing. So you've got some alternatives to your traditional lawn. Last week's episode on artificial turf, we talked about clover. We talked about eco lawn.
Yeah.
Where was I, right? Eco lawn. We talked about some steppable perennials, low perennials, or turning kind of a low labor way of turning your lawn into a garden.
That's right. Just as we start to reach to the end of the show, we actually have one more question.
Sure.
Clyde just writes in, "Hi, I'm a first-time listener from Mesa, Arizona. Interesting topic tonight. With some of the supplemental grasses, would they eventually drown out my good regular grass? Depending on the strength of your regular grass, I think like all plants, they're going to start to compete with each other. I wouldn't say that they're not good. They'll complement your good grass, and there'll be also good plants mixed in with your good grass. But yeah, definitely depending on the species and who you've got, they will eventually compete with each other. And nature will win where she wins kind of thing. So yeah, there's definitely going to be some competition, and in the weaker spots, you probably would lose the grass that you'd have now. But you've put down some alternative grasses and some alternative plants that are going to make your overall lawn area that much stronger and resilient. So I think it'll be a good trade-off.
Yeah, I mean, and these suggestions were for people who wanted to either get rid of their traditional lawn or their traditional lawn wasn't really working for them, right? Not growing and that type of thing. So these were kind of alternative solutions. So that, thank you for your question.
Yeah, thank you, Clyde. And thanks for tuning in for the first time. Welcome to the show.
That's right. So
that's the end of the show, I think.
Almost. So our listeners, once again, if you're just joining us or later to the show, please, you can visit Down to Earth podcast, Down the Garden Path podcast on your favorite podcast app, or search it on Google for all of our past episodes. Please subscribe so that you will be notified immediately when a new episode comes live. It'll be later though. We try to do it. We're trying really hard to do it this week, like the same week, right, Matt?
Yeah.
And so when we have at my website, downtoearth.ca with the number 2, I have a podcast section, and then off to the side after you click on podcast, we have past radio shows. So I've mentioned both of them tonight. Evelyn Haddon with House Strip Gardening. We discussed her book. And as well as the conversation on the book called Taming Wildflowers. And we definitely talked about eco-lawn a little bit in that episode. So with Wildflower Farm.
We did. Lots of great solutions out there for alternative lawns.
That's right. And I am designing, physically distant, virtually as well. I actually had someone contact me from Texas this week or last week. So I'm going to do a little design for her. So I just want our listeners to know that all great landscapes start with a plan. And so whether you're reaching out to us or you're reaching out to a garden designer or landscape designer in your area, support local and support small businesses during this situation. And you will just hit the ground running with your space. You really will. It will save you from doing lots of things, making lots of all the mistakes that all the designers we all made, right, when we first started out until we knew better. So definitely, again, you can find me at downtoearth.ca with the number 2, and my social media links are all there as well. And Matt, where can we find you?
Find me at naturalAffinityDesigns.ca with all my social media links there as well.
And you can also now, I don't know if we announced on the show about our Instagram.
That's right. We have not. So definitely check out Down the Garden Path podcast.
All of that, Instagram, including the word podcast, yes.
Including the all one word, Down the Garden Path podcast. You can find us at Down the Garden Path podcast on Instagram and also Facebook. So join us on those 2 platforms to continue all the conversation and the wonderful down-to-earth tips and tricks for your gardens when we're off the air as well.
That's right. And we want to just, as always, thank you so much for listening and for joining us here on Reality Radio 101, Down the Garden Path.
That's right. Thank you, Jennifer, Harry, Grant, John, Karen, Linda, and Clyde for writing in our questions. And thank you, Gary, for helping us produce this wonderful radio show / podcast.
That's right.
Thank you, folks. We appreciate it very much, and we hope that you have a wonderful week.
Thanks, you too.
You too.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to Down the Garden Path with your hosts, Joanne Shaw and Matthew Dressing, right here on Reality Radio 101.